The Galactic Empire was old, older than any civilization that dared to call itself eternal. Its maps stretched across spiral arms, and its archives cataloged 10,000 conquered worlds. Bureaucrats spoke in tones of inevitability, as though their reign had been written in the first stars, and its military paraded like the cosmos itself was nothing more than an obedient stage. But empires rot even while they shine. In secret chambers where alien nobles debated, cracks in their dominion were whispered about. Frontiers where rebellions flared. Sectors too vast to police. Whispers of an external threat pressing against their borders. And in the midst of their arrogance, they sought new weapons, new agents that could give them the illusion of control. That was when the alien mother answered their call. She was not one of them, not entirely. Her heritage was tangled, a merging of species the Empire would normally never allow. A matriarch cloaked in mystery. She carried herself with a composure and nobility, yet with an edge that unsettled even the most rigid officials. Behind her, 3 daughters walked with measured grace. They looked alien, but not entirely. Their eyes carried a spark of something different, something that unsettled those who studied them too closely. Those girls were part human, though the Empire refused to acknowledge humanity as anything but a primitive backwater. The record keepers labeled them hybrids, useful tools, assets to be molded. To the Council, they were experiments in loyalty and adaptability. To the mother, they were her children. The summoning chamber was vast, filled with representatives of dozens of species, each draped in the colors of their homeworlds. They regarded the family with disdain and curiosity, whispering among themselves. A human presence was rare in such halls. Most of the delegates had only heard of humanity in dismissive reports. Small colonies, unrefined technology, cultures clinging to old myths. Humans were written off as emotionally unstable, reckless, unfit for the order the Empire claimed to uphold. Yet here, before their eyes, stood proof that human blood could be shaped into something useful. The High Chancellor addressed the mother directly, his voice amplified through the chamber. He called her a servant of the throne, a protector of the Empire, and offered her children positions of honor. But the words dripped with condescension, and everyone knew what they truly meant: obedience. The girls were to become agents, infiltrators, the sharp edge of imperial control. Their loyalty would be tested, and their humanity suppressed. The mother inclined her head, saying little. Her daughters listened in silence, their gaze steady. They had been raised in the shadow of this inevitability, told since birth that their existence was tied to duty. Yet something in their posture betrayed unease. They were not like the alien youths who had been conditioned for servitude since infancy. They carried curiosity, an untamed spark that resisted the polished masks the Empire demanded. That spark was humanity, unyielding even when mixed with alien blood. When the council adjourned, the daughters were taken aside by handlers who explained their roles in clipped tones. They would be trained further, tested, and then deployed where needed. Missions would come without warning, and hesitation would not be tolerated. The handlers spoke of precision, loyalty, and sacrifice. The girls nodded as though they understood, but inside they wrestled with questions they dared not voice. One asked why their service mattered when they were treated as tools. The handler dismissed her question with a sneer, saying that loyalty was not about meaning but obedience. Days turned into cycles of training and indoctrination. The daughters were drilled in tactics, alien languages, weapon systems, and the art of deception. They absorbed knowledge quickly, adapting faster than their instructors expected. The trainers remarked on their unusual creativity, their ability to solve problems in ways no alien recruits had considered. What the Empire called unpredictability, the girls considered instinct. When ordered to breach a security system, one devised a method none had seen before, bypassing layers of code with lateral leaps of intuition. When placed in combat simulations, another improvised with her environment, turning disadvantages into weapons. The instructors were unsettled but impressed. Yet their reports carried a warning. Human traits made them effective, but also dangerous. The council debated these findings. Some argued the hybrids were valuable precisely because of these abilities. Others insisted such traits made them uncontrollable. The chancellor silenced the chamber, declaring that control would not be lost. They were assets, and assets obeyed. To ensure compliance, measures would be taken, restraints hidden beneath the guise of honor. Their first mission came sooner than expected. A rebellious mining colony on the Empire's edge had refused to deliver its tribute, citing harsh conditions and unfair demands. Normally, such defiance would be crushed with overwhelming force. But the Council wanted to test its new tools. The daughters were sent with a detachment of soldiers, instructed to infiltrate and dismantle the resistance from within. Their mother accompanied them, though she was presented not as protector, but overseer. The soldiers did not trust the hybrids and treated them with disdain. Yet when they arrived, it was the daughters who saw the truth of the rebellion. The colony was not defiant out of greed, but desperation. Its people were starving, their supplies siphoned by corrupt officials who enriched themselves while reporting false compliance. The rebels were not traitors, but survivors. The daughters understood this instinctively. Humanity's legacy of struggle whispered in their veins, reminding them of countless ancestors who had endured hardship against greater powers. Yet the Empire demanded they see only enemies. Their orders were clear: dismantle resistance, restore obedience, return with tribute. In private, the daughters argued. One insisted they could not blindly destroy those who fought for survival. Another reminded her that disobedience meant death, not just for them, but for their mother. The youngest remained silent, torn between fear and conviction. Their mother watched them quietly, her eyes shadowed with secrets she had not yet revealed. When the assault began, the daughters followed orders outwardly. They infiltrated the colony, identified leaders, and reported their movements. Soldiers prepared to strike. But when the moment came, something in them resisted. Instead of leading troops to slaughter, they used their skills to minimize bloodshed. Warnings were whispered to civilians. Escape routes quietly opened. The resistance was scattered, not destroyed, and the Empire's officials proclaimed victory without realizing how hollow it was. The reports unsettled the Council. They praised the hybrids' effectiveness, but questioned their restraint. Why had casualties been so low? Why had infrastructure remained intact when total destruction had been authorized? The instructors defended them, arguing efficiency was achieved. But others whispered a contamination of human softness infecting imperial discipline. The Chancellor reminded them that loyalty would be tested again. The Empire was never satisfied with obedience alone. Loyalty had to be proven again and again, until it broke whatever spark remained in those who served. The daughters had returned from their first mission, with results the Council praised publicly, yet dissected privately. Efficiency was undeniable, but efficiency was not enough. The Council wanted brutality, unquestioning devotion, fear as a currency of rule. They decided the next trials would strip away the hesitation they suspected. To them, hesitation was weakness, and weakness was contagion. The daughters were sent deeper into machinery of control, to facilities where training no longer resembled instruction, but ritualized cruelty. They were pitted against scenarios designed to wear down judgment, to erase empathy, to forge them into extensions of imperial will. Others had broken under this conditioning, reduced to shells that followed commands without thought. But the daughters were different. Their human instincts refused to die quietly. Each lesson meant to harden them only sharpened their questions. When asked to simulate the eradication of innocence, one adjusted the program to preserve civilians while still achieving victory. When punished, she endured the lashes in silence, eyes burning with something that unnerved her instructors more than defiance, resolve. The handlers began to whisper about human stubbornness. They tried harsher punishments, isolation, psychological pressure, but the hybrids adapted in ways alien recruits never had. They turned suffering into strategy, learned to shield one another in subtle ways, and began to move as a unit bound by more than training. This unity, born not of imperial doctrine, but of human connection, made them formidable. Where one faltered, another lifted her. Where one doubted, another reminded her of who she was. The Council called it contamination, but they could not deny results. Missions became successes, even when the parameters were impossible. The daughters excelled not because they obeyed, but because they refused to let one another fall. The mother watched silently, her expression unreadable. She never interfered openly, but she carried herself with the quiet certainty of someone who had seen such struggles before. In her presence, the daughters felt both comfort and unease. Comfort, because she was the only anchor in a world of manipulation. Unease, because her silence hinted at secrets buried too deep for them to grasp. The fragments of human legends she whispered at night haunted their dreams. Tales of relentless figures, of beings who came when called not by loyalty but by necessity. Stories that seemed like fantasy in a galaxy ruled by empires. Yet each fragment resonated with something raw within them, as though their blood recognized truths their minds could not yet name. The Council, blind undercurrents, saw only instruments growing sharper. They deployed the daughters into operations designed not just to test skill, but to erode identity. On a frontier world, they were ordered to crush a rebellion by targeting its families first. On another, they were commanded to assassinate leaders under the guise of negotiations. Each mission carved at their conscience, and each time they twisted their orders enough to limit destruction. Their reports were flawless on paper, their results undeniable, but those who fought against them whispered differently. They spoke a strange compassion within the shadows of conquest, of enemies who spared lives where the Empire demanded slaughter. These whispers traveled farther than the Council realized. Soldiers began to murmur among themselves. Some claimed the hybrids possessed foresight. Others swore their presence shifted battles before they began. Rumors grew that the daughters were not servants of the Empire at all, but something else entirely. Rumors the Council tried to suppress, though suppression only fed the fire. For the first time, cracks appeared not just in Dominion, but in fear itself. One daughter, restless after another mission steeped in half-truths, broke protocol by speaking openly to alien citizens she'd been ordered to monitor. Instead of interrogation, she asked questions. Instead of threats, she listened. The citizens expected cruelty but received understanding. They told her stories of oppression, of lives stripped of dignity by the Empire's endless hunger. She carried those words back, and though she spoke of them only to her sisters, the weight of them changed her. Another daughter, assigned to dismantle a rebel network, found herself admiring their courage. They fought not for power but for freedom, a word the Empire never spoke except with disdain. These realizations burned within them, inescapable even as they continued their missions. Their mother noticed a change, but she did not intervene. Instead, she sharpened her whispers. The tales grew darker, speaking of a figure who came when injustice grew unbearable, who struck without warning, who terrified even the strongest rulers. The daughters pressed her for details, but she would only say that the figure was human, and that to know her was to invite fear and respect in equal measure. They did not understand why their mother spoke of myths while the Empire demanded survival, but the tone of her voice lingered, a warning they could not ignore. The Empire tightened its grip. Reports of hesitation fueled suspicion, and suspicion bred cruelty. The Chancellor declared that loyalty must be proven in blood. A new mission was devised, one calculated not to test skill, but to force a choice. The daughters were sent to a colony suspected of harboring dissent. Their orders were not to subdue, but to execute. No leniency, no survivors. The message was to be absolute. Resistance meant annihilation. The soldiers assigned to accompany them prepared eagerly, eager to see whether the rumors of softness would finally break under the weight of duty. When the time came, the daughters acted. Outwardly, they followed procedure, securing the colony, isolating its people. But once again, they bent the edges of their orders. They struck with precision, dismantling defenses quickly, but when the soldiers prepared for slaughter, the daughters intervened. One disabled weapons under the guise of malfunction. Another redirected troops to false targets. The youngest led families through hidden paths to safety. In the chaos, soldiers grew suspicious, and accusations began to fly. Yet by the time the dust settled, the colony was declared subdued, though its population remained curiously intact. The Council was not blind. Their victory reports rang hollow when compared to intelligence from the field. Survivors spoke of shadows who spared them, of hybrids who carried mercy into the heart of conquest. The Chancellor raged at these contradictions. He summoned the mother and her daughters to stand before the Council, demanding explanation. The mother bowed her head, calm as ever, but her daughters struggled to remain silent. The eldest spoke at last, her words bold, declaring that loyalty did not require cruelty, that efficiency did not demand extermination. The council erupted, some calling her dangerous, others demanding her execution. But the chancellor silenced them with a raised hand, his eyes fixed on the mother. He accused her of contamination, of poisoning her children with human weakness. She did not deny it, but neither did she affirm it. Instead, she reminded them that results mattered more than methods, and results had never faltered.